Former Zimbabwe cricket captain Heath Streak is the country's head coach. The 42-year-old was unveiled in Bulawayo this week after accepting a 2-year contract. Streak succeeds Dave Whatmore, who was sacked in June. He has coaching experience from previously working with a local cricket team and has had stints as bowling coach for Bangladesh and Zimbabwe. He takes over as Zimbabwe bid to qualify for the 2019 ICC Cricket World Cup. South African Makhaya Ntini, who was interim head coach since Whatmore's departure, is expected to stay on as bowling coach, while Lance Klusener will continue as a batting consultant. Streak also hopes to help unearth and expose young cricketers as well as lure back some of the country's overseas-based stars. For more on the developments in Zimbabwe cricket, we're now joined by Farai Makutuya live in Harare. Farai, what advised Zimbabwe cricket's decision to look within its own in the selection of a new coach?
Well, Panina, this appointment could be the result of a perfect storm, if you want to call it that. Heath Streak was coming off a very successful stint as bowling coach in Bangladesh and was out of contract. And at the same time, his home country, Zimbabwe, was looking for a coach. And so he's come in to fill that void. And I think what Zimbabwe cricket is looking for in a person such as Streak is that local knowledge. He's played for Zimbabwe. He's captained Zimbabwe. He's coached locally. He knows the game. He's coached many of these players, played with some of them, and he can relate to them and perhaps bring out the best in them that perhaps a foreign coach wasn't able to do. He's also able perhaps to work around some of the administrative challenges and the politics, if you want to call it, of the game in Zimbabwe. And so that's the value that a local coach will bring to the national team, and I think that's what Zimbabwe cricket was looking for in going with Heath Streak this time round.
So part of Zimbabwe's challenge over the years has also been funding. What kind of assurances is Streak demanding from the Zimbabwe cricket?
Well, I think, like I said, Streak has played for Zimbabwe, captained Zimbabwe, and coached and experienced these very same financial challenges. So he knows what he's getting into. I had an opportunity to speak to one of the national cricketers soon after the appointment, and he said that what he expects and what the mood in the camp was very high, because they expect that Streak, knowing the challenges, knowing the issues, will be able to get around some of those minefields better than a local coach. But the assurances that he would have received are perhaps the same that Zimbabwe cricket authorities told me when I interviewed them a few days after they had appointed him. And they said that, look, their sources of funding are drying up. Sponsors are staying away because of economic challenges, but also because the performances simply haven't cut it. And so they've instituted a lot of cost-cutting measures, such as retrenchment, such as cutting the salaries of their staff, in order to be able to dedicate more funds to the game at a national level, but also at a grassroots level. And that should be able to sustain it going forward and allow Heath Streak to be able to do the job for which he's been appointed.
Now, another young talent is also part of Streak's agenda. But how can he do this without a strong domestic setup?
Indeed, and that's been one of the biggest challenges for Zimbabwe cricket, the lack of game time, particularly domestically. There was a local franchise system league that was in place, but unfortunately because of funding issues, it's collapsed and it's been done away with. What Zimbabwe cricket has done now is revived a provincial domestic first-class league, and that should be able to see players play a lot more locally, and that should give Heath Streak more players, a bigger pool to choose from. That should increase competition for the players that he appoints into the national team. But also, in addition to his role in bringing up and identifying new talent, which he's done very successfully in Bangladesh, and we hope that he'll be able to do the same here, he also has a role to try and lure back some of the Zimbabweans who are playing abroad, playing in other leagues, who don't want to come back and play for their country. His status here as one of the greats of the game, his track record domestically and in Bangladesh should be able, Zimbabwe cricket hopes, to attract those players back to Zimbabwe to augment and support the local talent that is playing for the country currently.
All right. Farai Makutuya live in Harare. Many thanks.